Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first, I want to call it surfing at lunch, but we're nowhere near an ocean, you know? This is our first lunch and learn on the CERF project. And we'll give it just a minute for additional people to join. We opened because we saw we had about 8 to 10 people in the waiting room. But in just a minute, we'll do a round of introductions and then get started. So. Nice to see a lot of familiar faces out there. Okay, so it's right at 12 o'clock. I think we should go ahead and get started now. First, my name is Steve Frisch. I'm the president of the CERF Business Council, and welcome to our first lunch and learn on the Community Economic Resilience Fund project. We are planning on doing at least 2 more and maybe 3 more of these between now and when the application is due for the CERF project on July 25th. We have multiple members of the CERF Business Council team here who will be working on the application. And we also have CERF Business Council's Vice President, Kristen York, here as well, who's going to be taking a leading role in the strategy behind putting the project together. So Kristen, why don't you introduce yourself real quick, and then I'll go to the attendants to introduce themselves as well.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen York, Vice President, and I typically run the Economic Empowerment Program. So that includes our Small Business Development Center, our EDA relationship, disaster response, multiple CARES and ARPA grant programs. And just happy to be here. We have a great team that have just recently completed the vulnerability assessment for the region. And a lot of those findings will be incorporated into this. So happy to have you all here today.
Great, thanks, Kristen. And if I might ask the attendants to very briefly introduce themselves, maybe 1 minute or less. And also, if you could do me a huge favor and also introduce yourselves with your name in the chat. We are also going to be distributing a Google form to you to fill out so that we can capture all of the contact information. So we make sure that we can communicate with you on a regular basis as the CERF is being developed. So really appreciate it if we could go to people introducing themselves individually. And maybe we'll start with Richard.
Hello, Stephen. You probably don't remember me. I'm known pretty much locally.
Oh, that's Rick Breeze-Martin.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Doing all right. I'm Rick Breeze-Martin. As I said, I am an economic development consultant, as well as a variety of other organizational things. I've worked extensively for the last 40 years in what's being called the Eastern Sierra region, the Inyo, Mono, Amador, Calaveras, Tuolumne, so forth, quite a bit. And I am very much interested in this, and I'm in conversation with some other people here as well on how to be involved and how to access and help with this.
Great, Rick. Welcome and thanks. How about we go to David Griffith next?
Thanks, Steve. David Griffith, Alpine County Supervisor, and very interested in economic development for Alpine County and the Eastern Sierra.
And I see we have a number of different biomass interests on the line here too. Rick and David and I all know each other from the forest management and biomass world. So welcome, David. Ben,
thanks.
how about you next from Mariposa?
Hey everybody, I'm Ben Goger. I work for Mariposa County Administration and I am the Housing Development Specialist here.
Toughest issue in the region. Dan Holler, are you there? I see his office, but not him. Oh, there he is. Dan, how are you? How about a quick introduction?
Hey, I'm doing great. Dan Holler, Town Manager of Town of Mammoth Lakes. involved with all kinds of different economic development stuff between throughout the Eastern Sierra, from Nevada to California, and the last several years here in Mono County, Mammoth Lakes. I think it's exciting to see what we can look at as we begin to look forward to the region, both in a broad sense and then even the sub-regional areas as we look at kind of this little segment of the Eastern Sierra. So glad to be on the call. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Dan, and look forward to talking to you on Friday. Stacy Corliss, since you're playing like triple duty in different roles, maybe you could introduce yourself as well.
Sure, thanks, Steve. Yes, most of you know me as a member of the Mono County Board of Supervisors, which still holds through this year, but I'm also really happy that I have also joined the team at Sierra Business Council as the Government and Community Affairs Director.
Thanks, Stacy. MC Hubbard, so nice to see you twice in 2 days. And to have a former SBC board member on the line. Maybe a quick intro.
Steve, it was great seeing you as well. I'm MC Hubbard, and I'm actually the general manager of KSRW Radio and Sierra Wave Media in Bishop. And my heart is still with Sierra Business Council and seeing what's up.
It was great being in Bishop yesterday. Alicia?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Alicia Venice with Mono County Economic Development and Tourism. But this is my second to last day with the county, so I'm retiring. So I really want you to be introduced to Jeff Simpson, who is on the call, and Jeff will be acting Director, Economic Development Director. So, but I'm listening in because I will always, always be an ambassador for the Eastern Sierra.
Well, congratulations on your retirement, Alicia. And
thank you.
And it's been nice communicating with you over the past couple of days. But why don't we go over to Jeff next so he can pick up where you are leaving off.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good to see you all. Jeff Simpson, currently Economic Development Manager for Mono County, trying to fill some enormous shoes as Alicia leaves us here. So we'll miss you, Alicia.
Great, Jeff. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Let's see. Next on the list, Liz Grans.
Yeah, what if I pop in? Because that's my team. I'm Liz Grans in Mono County Economic Development. I'm the Economic Development Coordinator. Nice to meet you.
Great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Let's see. John Wentworth. I think Devil's Postpile is speaking to us, John.
Sorry, John Wentworth, Mammoth Lakes Town Council, eating lunch. Thank you, everybody.
Totally understand that. That's why it's a lunch and learn, right? Jason Hill. Jason's probably getting lunch. Maybe while we're waiting for Jason to step in, we can go to Jenny Hatch.
Good timing. I just finished my lunch. This is Jenny Hatch, Executive Director for the Sierra Nevada. Nice to see you all.
Great. Thanks, Jenny, and thanks for being here. Supervisor Gardner.
Hi, just that, Supervisor. I'm Supervisor in Mono County. I'm looking forward to hearing more about CERF. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for being on the call, Bob. Really looking forward to talking to you about it. Mark Fisher.
Hi, my name is Mark, and I'm Administrative Analyst with the Tuolumne County Administration. And I'm just here to listen and learn as much as I can.
Oh, great to have Tuolumne in the house, Mark. I'm really glad that you joined the call. January Riddle.
Hi, everybody. I'm January Riddle. I'm an Alpine County Supervisor for District 1, and I'm looking forward to finding out what CERF is all about.
Oh, welcome, January. Glad to have you here. Karen.
Hi, everybody. My name is Karen Warburton. I am a senior administrative analyst for the County of Amador, and I'm the new kid on the block here, so I'm here to learn.
You know, I'm going to be really thrilled if we have someone from every county on the line today. That would, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Let's see, who, Jen?
Hey, hello everyone. My name is Jen Roser, District 4 Inyo County Supervisor, and ditto like everybody else. Looking forward to hearing more about CERF. And also congratulations, Alicia, on your upcoming retirement. You're an amazing asset, but well deserved. So,
thank you so much.
Great, thanks. Taro.
Hi, good day, everyone. I'm Taro Pacina from Bishop, California, retired Inyo Forest Fire Chief. I'm also the Wildland Fire and Fuel Specialist with Spatial Informatics Group, helping White Bark Institute, Inyo Forest, ESCOG on the 55,000 acre ESCCRP hazard fuel reduction treatment around the town of Mammoth Lakes. And I'm here to learn. Thank you.
Nice to have the donut and SIG in the house too. Kenji.
Hi, everyone. Program manager over at San Joaquin Small Business Development Center, but we also cover Amador, Alpine, and Calaveras County. Thanks for having us.
Oh, great to have a fellow SBDC manager in the house too. John Hopkins.
Hello, everybody. My name is John Hopkins. I'm the General Services Director for the County of Amador. One of my divisions is Economic Development. We're here to hear what you've got to say about CERF.
Great, thanks for being here. Lieber? Maybe I mispronounced your first name. Or is that Lisbeth?
Hi, I'm so sorry. Lisbeth, yeah, that's the right. So glad to be here. I am the new Sierra Nevada 30 by 30 organizer. I just started this new role. I'm excited to meet you all, and I'm here to learn and to listen. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thanks for being here. And sorry I butchered your name. It's my old eyes. Mark Fisher?
I already introduced myself before, but
sorry about that.
Thanks for inviting me to speak again.
See, it's kind of hard to keep track of everyone. Kathy? How about Nolan?
Hello, everyone. Nolan Bobroff. I'm with Town of Mammoth Lakes, and I'm their housing coordinator. And I'm excited to learn more about CERF.
Oh, great. Let's go back to Kathy.
Sorry about that. It's Kathy Galino, Calaveras County Economic and Community Development Director, and here to listen, and glad to hear that some of our Mono County and Inyo County folks are here because we're going to be collaborating hopefully through the Central Sierra Economic Development District. Hi, everybody.
Thanks for being here, Kathy. And I think it's official. We now have someone from every county in the group. It makes me really happy. Ann Segerstrom.
Let me see if I can get my video going. I look pretty terrible. I've been out in the yard. Ann Segerstrom. I'm a city council member for the city of Sonora, and I'm also sit on the Central Sierra Economic Development District. So we have been hearing quite a bit about this tremendous opportunity, and I'm looking forward to learning even more today and perhaps to meeting with you next week. And I see a lot of other members of the Central Sierra Economic Development Council. So we are already gung-ho.
So I look forward to meeting with you guys next week as well. I'm going to be down in the Highway 49 corridor between Amador and Mariposa on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week. So maybe after this call, we can set up some individual one-on-one or group meetings, which would make me really happy. So, Eric.
Hi there. Eric Earhart, I'm the Assistant County Administrator for Tuolumne County. We don't currently have anybody on our economic development role, and so I'm just here to make sure that we don't miss the boat on anything.
Well, we'll make sure you don't miss the boat, Eric.
Great.
We're really excited about working with all of the counties and the local jurisdictions on this. So it's going to be an exciting project. So,
fantastic.
And I think perhaps the only non-SBC staff member that I missed is Jason Hill. Jason, are you back? Or is there anyone else that didn't have an opportunity to introduce themselves?
Yeah, it's Tara Schiff I'm with Mariposa County. I'm the economic development specialist. I also sit on the board of the Central Sierra Economic Development District, and you know me.
Yeah, it's great to see you on the call. It's really, really nice to have 25 people on.
Hi, Stephen, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Dave.
Hi,
hey,
yeah, this is Dave.
Just one more introduction. Simon Montague. I'm the citizen representative on the Sierra board for Amador County.
Oh, great.
And Frank Axe asked me to jump on because he's riding the rails out to Chicago as we speak. So.
Oh, good for him. Dave Taney, how about you next?
Yeah, sorry, I'm not showing my face, and I joined a little late, so thanks for letting me join at the end. But my name's Dave Taney, and I am the director for the Central Sierra Economic Development District, which covers the 5 counties, 5 of the 7 counties in our new Eastern Sierra region. I'm also the director for Motherlode Workforce Development Board. And so we're a stakeholder at the table also.
Super important outcome of this, the workforce development piece. So really happy to have you here. Meredith?
Thank you.
How about Michelle Gonzalez?
Michelle Gonzalez. I'm the finance director at the City of Angels Camp, and I'm excited to learn more from everyone.
Oh, great. And nice to have Angels Camp here too. Like there are 7 counties and 9 cities. So someday we'll have everyone together at the same table. That'll be really nice.
Thank you.
Hillary Hobbs.
Hello, Hillary Hobbs, assistant to the town manager for the town of Truckee.
Nice to see you again, Hillary. Rick Cattleman.
Yikes. Hi, Rick Cattleman, representing the Whiteberg Institute over here in Mammoth Lakes and Bishop.
And nice to see you twice in 2 days, Rick, after not seeing each other for 5 years, probably.
Yeah, it's probably been that long.
Yeah. So, and then we have a telephone number, a 760-22, the last 4 digits are 4325.
Hello.
Okay, anyone? Oh, go ahead.
Me? I don't even know if you can see me. Hi, I'm Robin Bolser. I'm the small business owner down here in Bishop, California. Excited excited the idea of sustainable economies. So.
Okay, so Robin, your job is to get more individual small business owners involved in this process.
I know.
Thank you so much as a small business owner for being here.
Yeah. Well, I've got some connections at the chamber too, so I'll do my best.
That's super important.
Yeah, thanks.
So, okay, now is there anyone I missed?
Oh, yeah, Les Fong. I'm director of the Small Business Development Center for San Joaquin County, also handling the Amador, Calaveras, and Alpine County. And I thought lunch was provided, so I invited my intern, Evan, to show up. But
oh, good.
So we're hungry.
Well, everyone should feel free to eat, and we'll try to keep you within the hour. And thanks for being here, Les, and great to have another SBDC partner at the table. We really appreciate that. So,
and then one more, Jaron Brandon. I'm the District 5 County Supervisor for Tuolumne County, and I ran to hopefully provide some opportunity for people. I think Eric summed it up well. We're rethinking our economic development, and it's currently a vacant position. So make sure we're not missing anything.
Great. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Ben Stopper, Supervisor, District 5, Calaveras County.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Ben Stopper, Supervisor, District 5, Calaveras County.
Great, Ben, thanks for being here. I'm really happy to see all of the county supervisors here. That's really exciting because I think there's a ton of opportunity here for the counties to really get some things done that we haven't been able to get done in the past several years. Okay, now, is there anyone else that hasn't had a chance to introduce themselves?
Yeah, hi Steve, it's Barbara Lahan from Northern Inyo Healthcare District.
Oh, hey Barbara, nice, thanks for joining, appreciate it. Anyone else? Okay, so a reminder, there's going to be a form in the chat for you guys to fill out, so we capture all of your contact information and really appreciate everyone being here. So I'm going to walk through a series of slides now that is kind of a brief description of the CERF program and some of the opportunities that might come from that, but we want to save time at the end of the meeting for more of a kind of discussion and contribution as far as identification of stakeholders and some other things. So, so the agenda, we're going to introduce the potential stakeholders to Sierra Business Council as a CERF convener. Talk with the stakeholders about CERF program goals, objectives, and application process. If I could ask people who aren't speaking to mute, please, that would be quite helpful. Then solicit feedback on stakeholders we'd be reaching out to and identify economic development, climate resilience projects, kind of capture the blue sky ideas within the region, and then point you guys to some additional resources and talk about next steps on public outreach. So that's what we have on the agenda so far. We do have an exercise at the end, which is kind of a little kind of stakeholder identification and project identification exercise, and you'll get instructions for that when we get to it. So, so Sierra Business Council, I think many of you know our organization. We're a Sierra-based nonprofit. We've been in the region for about 28 years now. As Kristen mentioned, we host a number of economic empowerment programs, including a small business development center. We do a micro lending program. We've done a lot of work on one-on-one technical assistance to small businesses. We also do quite a bit of work on broadband deployment, which is a critical issue in our region, and our broadband coordinator is on the phone today as well. And then, you know, we do a ton of work around climate planning, climate resilience, kind of state policy on that area. And as many of you know, the CERF has kind of a strong intersect with meeting some of the other state objectives around climate and equity and some other things. So we do most of our work through on-the-ground programs where we design projects and implement them in the communities. And we've worked across this Eastern Sierra. We'll talk about that Eastern Sierra regional definition in a minute. We've worked across this Eastern Sierra region on implementing projects for many, many years. So I have relationships with many of you on the phone. So Sierra Business Council is pursuing a role in the CERF application as both the regional convener and the fiscal agent for the CERF efforts. If you haven't had an opportunity to read the CERF guidelines, I would strongly recommend that all of you do so. And we'll provide a link to those guidelines at the end of this meeting. So what is CERF? Like, what is this program? I think many of you know this already, but we'll go over it one more time. This is a one-time use of state general funds that will distribute $600 million to 13 regions across California to support inclusive and low carbon economic development. The program was put together by the California Labor and Workforce Development Agency, the Governor's Office of Planning Research, and GoBiz, or the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. This is kind of a historic opportunity to actually work on long-range planning for economic development objectives. This came out of originally the kind of COVID-19 crisis and the recognition that for economies to recover effectively, we really needed to be looking at what is the new strategy and what is the long-term strategy to kind of integrate multiple objectives in long-term economic development efforts. I think many of you have ongoing economic development efforts on the ground. The intent of this program is not to supersede or to change those. It's really to kind of look at those and integrate those with other efforts in order to reach a higher objective. So for those of you that have been struggling in your communities around economic development, this should be additive and should be something that can be a resource to you guys to achieve many of your existing objectives, and then also set some new visionary objectives, which we think is really important. So the program funding, the program objectives are really to promote equitable and sustainable economic development. That's defined in the guidelines that you guys can look at, but it is really important to note that these are really focused, this program is really focused on trying to find pathways to create what are known as high road jobs, which essentially means jobs paying above the area median income. So, and it's also intended to look at this issue of advancing kind of employment and social and economic mobility for historically disinvested communities in California. So there's a strong link to trying to address some of the equity issues around economic advancement that have developed in the state, not just during COVID, but also pre-COVID, of course. The intent of the program is to align and leverage federal and state funding to maximize economic resilience. We think this is a really important element of the program, that if each region gets an investment of funds in phase 2 in what are known as the implementation projects, there should be an opportunity to leverage other state and federal funding programs to match the Community Economic Resilience Fund kind of funding. So although each region is getting a certain amount of money, we think that the ability to match other pots of funding could actually have a much larger impact. And then the other purpose of the program is to support inclusive economic planning that prioritizes equity, job quality, and sustainability. As I mentioned previously, the state has split the state up into 13 regions that will receive planning and implementation dollars through a competitive process. Phase 1 of the program are $5 million or a maximum of $5 million planning grants to each one of those 13 regions. So the process that we're going through over the next 2 months will essentially design that planning grant application with your help and assistance to make sure that we can maximize kind of the participation and the benefit in the region. Phase 2 of the project is a project implementation phase where $500 million will be rewarded across those 13 regions to meet, to implement projects that meet those CERF program goals. There is not a set aside for each one of those 13 regions. Phase 2 is essentially a competitive process at this point, but the guidelines for phase 2 are not out yet, and they will be designed over the next 3 or 4 months. And we think there's a strong commitment on the part of this program to make sure that every region gets a distribution of funding from that $500 million pot. Just so you know, SBC has been advocating with the state that every region be guaranteed a $40 million pot of funding, but we'll see what happens. The CERF timeline, we are in the application phase right now. Many of you participated in the draft guideline public workshops that were done in April and May. The planning phase solicitation was released just last week. So we're poring over that to figure out everything that needs to be done. The applications are due by July 25th. They'll be reviewed, and the planning phase grantees will be identified in September to begin a contracting process. The state has a goal of putting everyone under contract by October. And then by November, they're planning to release the implementation phase guidelines. This is going to be, that is the planning phase of this project. It's going to be roughly an 18 to 24 month process. Although we think there's so much good work that's been done in the region already, we are going to try to get this shortened to like 18 months so that we can move on to implementation as quickly as possible. The requirements for phase one planning, that is what's required to be within the application, is really in 4 pieces. The first is partnership and coalitions. So we're going to need to identify a governance structure. We're going to need to lay out a community outreach and engagement plan. And we're going to have to enumerate all of the steps we're going to take for inclusive coalitions, which means reaching out to equity partners, labor, community-based organizations, economic development organizations, workforce development organizations, academia, etc. It really is a very high focus on inclusivity in this process. So all of those things will need to be within the application. We're going to need to lay out what our approach will be to developing a high road regional economic plan and what steps we will take to analyze equity, sustainability, job quality and access, and economic competitiveness for the region. So, some of that work that we lay out would later be conducted by consultants. And we have been talking to a number of different people who might provide those services. Some of that work might be provided by members of this team itself that is identified in the grant phase. We're required to lay out a set of kind of goals and a vision for the project, which lays out kind of specific goals for creating this high road economy that's sustainable, inclusive, and equitable. So that would be within the grant application. And then we're required to provide a certain amount of analysis in this application, which includes a map of the potential stakeholders, a summary of economic and climate hazards and opportunities within the region, and a brief labor and industry analysis, which our team has already started working on. And as Kristen previously mentioned, a lot of that work has already been done through the Sierra Nevada Climate Vulnerability Assessment that members of our team have been working on for the last 2 years as well. So we kind of have a head start on that analysis piece. There's also a lot of work that's been done in the community on other layers of analysis around economic development, including the work that the Central Sierra Economic Development District has done developing their SEDS, the work in the Eastern Sierra region around the recreation partnership and their kind of ecosystem services model to look at benefits within the region. So we plan to identify as many of those as possible and incorporate that information. Brief description of the Eastern Sierra region. So first, it is fascinating to me that I always think of the Eastern Sierra as the beautiful drive I took yesterday from Alpine County to Southern Inyo County. For the purposes of this program, the Eastern Sierra is defined as those 3 counties plus Mariposa, Tuolumne, Calaveras, and Amador. I think we are lucky in that there's a lot of groundwork that's been done for the western slope of the county, working together through the Central Sierra Economic Development District and the eastern slope of the county through the region through the Eastern Sierra Council of Governments. And this is a great opportunity for those 2 entities to be working together as one to kind of identify objectives for the region in order to capture that implementation funding. So it's 7 counties, 19,000 square miles, 186,000 people. Our initial analysis of the current economic drivers you see on the screen Tourism and travel spending is high. Healthcare and social assistance is high. Transportation, warehousing, and goods movement, important, especially on the east side with the expansion of the Eastern Sierra Regional Airport, and with 395 and Highway 6 being major transportation corridors into the Intermountain West. Real estate and rentals and construction, high. So, and then as Kathy mentioned, also agriculture, very good point. Agriculture is an incredibly important part of the economy across this entire region. Potential high growth sectors that we've already identified, and remember this is merely a preliminary analysis, include forestry, forest management and biomass utilization, forest health and wildfire mitigation, climate and energy innovation, sustainable tourism, healthcare, and social assistance. I do think there's a great potential, as Kathy mentioned, for expansion in the agriculture industry as well. So local knowledge that SBC is seeking to put together this application. So the kind of process that we need to think through is who is to be involved in this high road transition collaborative, which is how the state is defining these collaborative governance models in the regions. So, who are the stakeholders that we need to bring to the table? We know we need to reach out in addition to all of the local jurisdictions and the other entities we've already mentioned. We know we need to reach out to tribal representatives, to environmental justice advocates, to labor organizations, to community organizations, and of course, the wide range of public agencies that have a stake in this discussion, including special districts that cover things like water and utilities and education and all of the other kind of backbone services within the region. We would like to identify existing economic and climate climate planning processes that are going on within the region as part of the background information for this application. So that would include looking at what are the existing workforce training efforts, what are the efforts around broadband deployment. We know many of you have been working through broadband collaboratives and others to expand broadband deployment. What is the work that's currently going on around climate adaptation and mitigation, including local climate action planning, energy action planning, which I know entities like the city of Sonora have been involved in, and other kind of climate mitigation projects in the region. Efforts around sustainable tourism, which everyone, I think across the region has been involved in, but the program on the east side with the Eastern Sierra Recreation effort is really a fascinating model that I think we could look at as an existing kind of economic model and kind of management model to take a look at. And then what are the processes in the region around developing comprehensive economic development strategies through the economic development districts in order to access US EDA and other funding, which we think is an important source of potential future match. And then the final thing we'd like to take a look at is just a little bit of blue sky. Like if you could do anything, what would your long-term goals be? What new ideas should be put on the table? What are the big picture opportunities out there for kind of a future economic development strategy for this region? I think every meeting should have a blue sky element where people can dream and can lay out kind of something innovative and new on the table. We really want to encourage you guys to do that as part of this next exercise. So before we go to the exercise to kind of aggregate data in these three columns, I'm wondering if you guys have any questions about the CERF process itself and the application requirements, and any questions I can answer before we go to kind of our interactive exercise. David, I think you made a good point that government is a major employer in the region, also an employer that is having a hard time finding employees. We definitely want to think about that as an economic driver.
I have a question, Stephen.
Sure.
It's Dave Taney. So we need to put a lot of this together before you submit your application, right? I mean, a lot of it'll be determined afterwards as part of the data collection and knowledge gathering, but we're going to want to have a lot of this put together ahead of time to show that we have a coalition of the willing and some common thinking, correct?
Yes.
And then, so when it comes time to put a budget together, what does a $5 million budget look like on a project like this? I mean, how does that get broken up? And is it going to labor? Is it going to, time, other things? I guess I'm trying to figure out how $5 million gets broken up in a planning effort like this.
So I would anticipate that we're going to need to go outside for certain resources that are functions that will need to be contracted. So labor market analysis, economic sector analysis, job creation analysis, some of the background kind of base data. We are likely going to need to contract with an outside entity, whether that be an academic institution or an economic development a research firm, something akin to Brookings, but probably not Brookings. So, excuse me. So a portion of this will be going outside to contractors. So one section is the economic data. Another section is the community involvement, particularly around kind of community engagement, things like media and marketing and outreach, and the other things that need to be considered. There's going to be a need to contract for facilitation skills for some of these meetings. There's also going to need to be a need to contract for translation services across the board, both documents and kind of simultaneous translation in meetings. So I also think that there is an opportunity. My guess is that a good chunk of this funding will go to build capacity in organizations to participate in a meaningful way. We have not done the budget yet, but my guess is something in the area of at least $2 to $3 million of this funding is going to need to be invested in all of your respective organizations or infrastructure in order to participate in a meaningful way and to bring your services and your ideas to the table. Things that could be covered in the planning grant phase include things like the creation of economic development districts, the development of comprehensive economic development strategies, building social and kind of technical assistance infrastructure in the community in order to be able to implement projects within the region. So my guess is a big chunk of this funding is going to go to outside organizations and entities for participation in their own individual efforts as we move towards creating a budget. Now, what that means as far as individual organizational participation, we haven't really completely thought through yet. I think there are some key partners that need additional capacity. I would say the Central Sierra Economic Development District is one of them. Potentially the SCOG or the Eastern Sierra Recreation Collaborative on the east side is another one. I think there's going to be a need to invest in participation for some of the tribal entities and for some of the labor and environmental justice organizations in order to bring them to the table. My strategy would be to identify the partners we need to bring to the table and then set aside funding in the budget in order to fund those partners.
That's really helpful, John, or Steve. I appreciate that, because I think building out capacity is really an important part of this, because you know, if we could have, we would have done this by now. And so we have a coalition of the willing, but having capacity is really critical. So I appreciate your thoughts on that.
Well, and I would say there's another really critical piece of this. As a rural region, we have suffered from low capacity for years. What we want to leave in the wake of this project is enhanced capacity in order to achieve these objectives beyond the CERF program, right? Like the best case scenario here is this program can lift up our capacity to engage in really meaningful, inclusive, equitable economic development. And that after the CERF funding and the implementation funding is gone, the capacity is in the region to continue doing that work. You know, that's really, really important. So other questions before we go to our Padlet exercise?
Yes, I had one question. As a component of economic development, you know, a lot of our rural areas, the population is aging. We're seeing housing spikes, rental prices go up as well. Will this also be including any type of efforts for how we can address the housing situation needed to support that workforce?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes. That housing is clearly one of the most significant economic drivers in the region. And to the extent that this program can both lay out in the planning phase what the strategies are that might be effective, and then identify projects in the implementation phase that could be funded to begin to address some of those issues, yes. I think the one area that I've heard the state talk about not wanting to actually have a lot of the implementation funding go to, and I'm just going to be frank here because I've heard all of these kind of back channel conversations, is that as far as laying out strategies for broadband deployment, they're really happy about that. Funding broadband projects, they feel like the $6 billion they put in the budget to expand middle mile and last mile broadband deployment should be the source of funds for broadband projects. So the one infrastructure area I've heard them be kind of, you know, soft on is the broadband side. So to the extent that the CERF projects can advance those broadband initiatives and then point to other sources of funding for it, I think there's an opportunity there too. And then I would note, by the way, on the housing issue, was that Ben that asked the question, by the way?
No, this is Jaron.
Oh, Jaron, thanks. You know, one of the really interesting opportunities here, I think, is figuring out how to create the infrastructure in order to access state funding for housing more efficiently. You know, there are, you know, major new sources of funding at housing and community development that many of our rural local jurisdictions have a very hard time accessing. So thinking through what kind of infrastructure we could put in place in order to provide support for accessing funds from HCD or from the low-income housing tax credit programs or others would be something that could definitely be included within this plan.
Thank you. I really appreciate that answer. And I think, like Dave, the capacity issue, as you identified, is the major problem. It's not that the money's not out there. It's our ability to access that, to build out the infrastructure for some of these projects and kind of the related issues. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's so true across the board in our rural jurisdictions, is that capacity is really the roadblock. There is so much money out there right now, but we can't get to it. So this is kind of our opportunity to figure out how to put in place the processes to get to it and to make our rural region more competitive. You know, other questions before we go to our Padlet?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask whether on your stakeholders section there, if we are including thinking about the City of Los Angeles, Department of Water and Power, especially in the Inyo County region?
What a fascinating question.
I'm just going to offer, when you talk about capacity, and I mean, the city of Los Angeles is a great employer, and it's prevented the Owens Valley from turning into a strip mall, I suppose. However, on the other hand, as a business owner, I consider it to be a major depressant on economic activity because of the stranglehold that it has on the real estate. It's really pretty bad.
Yeah, so
it's part of the reason there's no housing.
So this issue definitely came up in my swing through Inyo County yesterday. I did a series of meetings with many of the local jurisdictions and some of you in Lone Pine and in Bishop yesterday. For those of you not familiar with the issue, Inyo County is only 3% private land. The other 97% of the land is a combination of LADWP, the Forest Service, and BLM, and of course the national park at Death Valley, which means that many of the communities are land constrained. And to answer your question, I think land tenure definitely has to be on the table as an economic development strategy in this process. That constrained communities that have no opportunity to build housing or to place new businesses, definitely a big issue, particularly in Inyo, in Inyo County. So yes, on the table.
Yeah, Stephen, David Griffith here. We all recognize the great need for capacity building, but I just want to point out that this is a time-limited program, and after we build the capacity, we will also have to find a way to maintain it. Because if there isn't any money to maintain it, we'll be back where we started from.
Super good point, David. I think the question is, how do you build a sustainable system for accessing kind of funding later on, beyond the life of this program? And I think that should be one of our key goals. Like, if I were you, I would identify that as a goal of this program, to lift the capacity of the community and to make that capacity sustainable, right? Now, whether that can come through, increased competitiveness on grant programs or standing up organizations that can provide that kind of assistance. I think that's a really good point. It's an issue that has to be addressed in the planning process. Okay, let's go to our tablet exercise. I want to honor our staff's kind of hard work to put together.
Steve, I got a question for you briefly here. I just want to make sure in the phase one funding, the 5 million, is that ultimately going to look like a CEDS, or is it some other planning tool? And then who approves the work that the Sierra Business Council does? So you apply for it, let's say you get the grant, who oversees whatever it is that you're going to ultimately provide?
Great. So I think that if you read the guidelines, there's a series of deliverables that are required from the planning grant phase. And it does require what is essentially a regional economic development strategy with numerous elements that you would see in one of those strategic documents, beyond a CEDS, but similar to a CEDS. I think our approach, by the way, would be to recognize the point that there are sub-regional differences within the Eastern Sierra region, that the west slope of the Sierra and the east slope of the Sierra are not exactly the same. So I would be seeing most likely one regional plan with elements for different sub-geographies within that region, where different items might be emphasized due to the local kind of economic differences, right?
Just to be clear though, we have an internal governance structure with our group, with this region, and then there's a state, and it's combined between EDD, OPR, and GoBiz that oversee this. They have different tasks, but the whole goal of this specific plan, as opposed to a CEDS, is to identify projects that are eligible for that $40 million and get in line as soon as possible to access that 40 million. And we need to look at it systemically on what is going to achieve the goals in that legislation.
Yeah. So we would see, as far as overseeing SBC's work is concerned, Our governance model would include a citizens advisory committee that we would report to. We're working on developing that governance model right now. And then as an applicant, we would be required to participate in a monthly kind of oversight roundtable with OPR and the workforce, the Labor and Workforce Agency and GoBiz. And then the project would be overseen officially as far as meeting the grant terms and obligations, including the planning obligations, by the Labor and Workforce Development Agency. So, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay, Erica, you want to quickly explain the Padlet?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Erica. I'm part of the CERF team for the Sierra Business Council. And we're going to do a little interactive session here using a platform called Padlet. And this is just the best way for us to get some feedback and knowledge from all of you all in these 3 categories. It's really simple. I'm going to send out a link after I'm done explaining, so keep an eye out for that in the chat. It's really simple though. All you have to do when you get the link is just hit this little button here, and then you can just type in your response here, hit publish, and then everyone else should be able to see it. And if you see a response that you like or that you want to emphasize, you can just give it a little heart here. You're welcome to make this anonymous or tag your name along to it. But yeah, we should be able to see everybody's responses coming in. So I'll leave this up on the screen. And this will also be sent out in an email afterwards as well if something else comes into your head or you don't get a chance to fill this out. So I'm going to go ahead and send this in the chat right now. And then everyone will need to open this up on another tab on your browser. And we look forward to getting your responses.
Great, thanks. So what we're really looking for here from you guys is who are the stakeholders that need to be at the table from either your county or your region of the Sierra? Who are the critical stakeholders? And I have to tell you, we're kind of weak in certain areas right now. I feel like we're weak in labor, we're weak in environmental justice, we're weak in tribal, we're weak in kind of community-based organizations. We're pretty strong on jurisdictions. So who are the go-to entities that you guys work with as stakeholders that we need to engage in this process? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is, what are the existing economic development and climate kind of resilience efforts that we really need to be incorporating in this process? So who are the entities? And by the way, as you guys are identifying stakeholders, if you can identify specific individuals, or if you feel more comfortable doing that directly to us and to one of us in the chat, please do that. Or direct, if you feel more comfortable directing specific individuals to Erica Bacchus in the chat, please feel free to do that. Like, so for example, we already consider Alpine County a stakeholder. Who else in Alpine County needs to be at the table, David? Or who else from within the county actually needs to be involved in this process? Community-based organizations or chambers or other entities. The same is true for that tab that says community organizations. Which community organizations, right? So the more data, the better, in my mind.
Are you looking for suggestions right now?
Yeah, or put them in the Padlet. You can either do it verbally right now or in the chat right now, or put it in the Padlet and we'll capture it. So who are the stakeholders that should be at the table?
Well, I'm on my phone, so I can't access this because I'm having a wonderful PSPS power shut off right now until 4 p.m. But I would say including an entity such as PG&E for some of the electrical power resiliency. I know that Chicken Ranch Band of Miwok have an economic development officer and are in an expansion kind of mindset. And then recommending also the North Valley Labor Federation that represents this area, along with some of the Central Valley.
Oh, we might have just lost your phone.
So did I cut out?
Yeah, but we lost you at North Valley Labor Federation that represents both the Valley and the Sierra Foothills region.
Yep, that was it.
And ADCA is the Amador Tuolumne Community Action Agency, correct?
That's correct.
I love the point that we're starting to really build in kind of specifics here. The more specifics, the better. The utility intersect is a really interesting one. That's similar to the question about LADWP being at the table. Like when you look at our region, both in the East and the West, for example, East Bay Mud, really should be a stakeholder in this process, but they also have an opportunity here, I think, to kind of link to kind of the water services that they're providing. The same is true of San Francisco PUD with the Hetch Hetchy system, right? So, that's a really interesting one, that there are places where our infrastructure actually services other areas of the state where they should be significant stakeholders, Like there probably wouldn't be much of an LA without the Owens River, So how we address that issue of cross-regional collaboration, I think, is going to be kind of tough. And we'll have to think through that. Someone added to the group the SBDCs, which I think is a really interesting issue here. So we have at least 3 SBDCs that I know of covering this region. Some of them are on the phone today. The Bakersfield SBDC covers the Eastern Sierra region. So I think that there are at least 3 covering this region, and what the intersect of the SBDCs would be in this process, I think is a really interesting question. Okay, we're reaching the end. A reminder here. So number 1, the Padlet will remain open, and you now have the link so you can keep adding information. We are also going to do at least 2 more and probably 3 more of these lunch and learn sessions. So there's an opportunity to be involved through that process. We also have individual staff members who are going to be doing tours through the Sierra Nevada to do one-on-one meetings. As I mentioned, I'm going to be in Amador, Calaveras, Tuolumne, and Mariposa County Monday through Wednesday next week. So if any of you would be interested in meeting while I'm there, I'm going to find some nice outdoor location with good airflow in each one of those places. Let me know, and I'd be happy to do a one-on-one meeting with you. And the contact email will be at the end of this email address. And then we're also going to be doing one-on-one 30-minute to 1 hour Zoom interviews for anyone who wants to provide more direct feedback. As we develop products that go into the application, we can be sharing some of those with you guys for your feedback and kind of comment and approval. Although we are going to be moving fast on this application because it's due it's due by July 25th, and we want to have a final draft done by July 12th, so that we have a really good idea about how we're going to be moving forward with this. So we have a screen up right now with where you can find additional information. So there's information at the Governor's Office of Planning and Research on their Just Transition website. The announcement video from GoBiz, the Labor Workforce and Development Agency, and OPR is on the web on YouTube. And then the guidelines themselves are at the California Labor and Workforce Development Agency website for you guys to read. Next slide, please. You can contact us at this email at CERF@sierrabusiness.org. We do have a web page up, which we should have a phone number on shortly if anyone prefers to communicate by phone. Or you can reach out to me directly at sfrisch@sierrabusiness.org. But I would encourage everyone to use this CERF email address so that we can make sure that we're capturing all of the information in one place. Many of you know me and can send me an email separately if you feel that you need to do it. And yes, Kathy, we'd be happy to put those slides up on the webpage or email it to all of the attendees. So we'll do that sometime this afternoon after this meeting. So that's how you can contact us or communicate with us. We'll be reaching out to many of you individually around kind of getting feedback on specific elements, and we're already setting up meetings in specific areas. I particularly would like to meet with the counties and county supervisors if I can, when I'm down there for this first kind of trip across the west side. So Ben and others, and like really want to meet with your jurisdictions while I'm down there. So feel free to reach out and grab some time. I think what I'm probably going to do is Monday in Amador and Calaveras, Tuesday in Tuolumne, and Wednesday in Mariposa. But I'm willing to come down as many times as I need to in order to, kind of have good communication. And then I should let you guys know, part of this process will be staffing someone in your communities to act as a permanent liaison on this process. So we are going to be looking for 2 kind of community liaisons, one to place on the west slope of the Sierra and one to place on the east slope of the Sierra throughout the process. So we're kind of doing this by driving right now, but shortly, as soon as we have the application in, we're going to start looking for staff to permanently staff the process for you guys for the next 2 years in your communities. So any final questions or comments before we drop off?
I appreciate you taking the time to step us through this. It's a little complicated, and we appreciate your leadership efforts, Stephen. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Really appreciate that. So. Well, I hope everyone had a good lunch, even if they didn't get to go surfing. So we will see you later.
Bye.
Thank you so much.